San Nicolas Island sits in the Pacific Ocean. It is about 61 miles from the coast of Southern California. The island is small and difficult. Constant ocean winds blow across it. There is very little fresh water. The cliffs drop sharply into the cold sea. But the waters around the island are rich. Dense forests of kelp grow under the surface. Fish, shellfish, seabirds, and seals live nearby. For the right people, the island could support life. For thousands of years, the Nicoleno people lived there. They were experts at surviving in this harsh environment. They fished the kelp beds. They harvested shellfish from the rocks. They hunted seals on the beaches. They even built boats capable of crossing the open ocean. Their isolation had once been their strength. It protected them from the outside world. But that protection ended in the early 1800s. Russian fur traders arrived. They brought violence. They brought new diseases. Within a few decades, the Nicoleno population collapsed. Hundreds became dozens. Dozens became just a handful. By 1835, only a small group remained on the island. Weak, vulnerable, forgotten. San Nicolas Island sits in the Pacific Ocean. It is about 61 miles from the coast of Southern California. The island is small and difficult. Constant ocean winds blow across it. There is very little fresh water. The cliffs drop sharply into the cold sea. But the waters around the island are rich. Dense forests of kelp grow under the surface. Fish, shellfish, seabirds, and seals live nearby. For the right people, the island could support life. For thousands of years, the Nicoleno people lived there. They were experts at surviving in this harsh environment. They fished the kelp beds. They harvested shellfish from the rocks. They hunted seals on the beaches. They even built boats capable of crossing the open ocean. Their isolation had once been their strength. It protected them from the outside world. But that protection ended in the early 1800s. Russian fur traders arrived. They brought violence. They brought new diseases. Within a few decades, the Nicoleno population collapsed. Hundreds became dozens. Dozens became just a handful. By 1835, only a small group remained on the island. Weak, vulnerable, forgotten. In 1835, Spanish Franciscan missionaries decided to remove the last Nicoleno people. Their stated goal was to protect them. A single ship arrived at San Nicolas Island. The removal was chaotic. A storm was approaching. People scrambled to board the ship with whatever they could carry. When the ship finally departed, one person was left behind. A woman. How did this happen? Nobody knows for certain. Perhaps she was overlooked in the chaos. Perhaps she jumped ashore at the last moment. Perhaps she was searching for someone. Some stories say she had a young child on the island. If this is true, the child did not survive long. The ship disappeared beyond the horizon. The woman stood alone on the beach. She watched it go. She was now the last living member of her entire people. the last person who spoke her language, the last keeper of her culture. She didn't know this yet. What she did know was simpler and more immediate. She was completely alone. Survival required more than luck. It required skill. She had grown up on this island. She knew its rhythms. She knew where food could be found. She knew how to read the tides and seasons. She built shelters from materials she found on the shore. One structure used the rib bones of a massive whale that had beached long before her arrival. She filled the gaps with driftwood, grasses, and earth. Other shelters were lighter and movable, adapted to seasonal changes. She made clothing from bird feathers and seal skins. Each item was carefully stitched together. Without metal needles, she used bone needles. The work was slow and precise. Every mistake was costly. She harvested shellfish from the tidal pools. She caught fish. She hunted birds. She took seals when she could. She dried meat in the wind to preserve it. She timed her gathering to the tides and seasons. Fresh water was scarce on the island. She collected rainfall in natural rock basins. She stored water carefully. She learned exactly how much she needed and how little she could waste. Every day was a cycle of necessary tasks. Gather food before the tide changed. Collect water before the dry season. Repair tools before they broke completely. Rebuild shelters before the storms arrived. She was alone, but she was not idle. She was working. Physical survival was hard, but the greater threat may have been psychological. Complete isolation is a form of pressure that very few people ever experience. Without other people, without shared language, without anyone to talk to, the mind begins to suffer. Many documented cases of extreme solitude end in despair, hallucination, or madness. She endured. How? Evidence suggests she sang regularly. Songs from her culture, preserved only in her memory. She spoke aloud, possibly to animals, possibly to herself, just to hear a voice. She marked time carefully. Small notations, carved sticks, ways to impose structure on a world that no longer acknowledged her existence. She watched the seasons repeat. She observed the animals around her. She paid attention to the world, even when the world paid no attention to her. These were not signs of madness. They were strategies, methods of maintaining identity when no one else could reflect it back. Year after year, she chose to keep going. Not dramatically, not heroically, just quietly, practically, stubbornly. She chose to live. Years passed. Storms battered the island. Shelters were rebuilt. Tools were replaced. The seasons repeated themselves again and again. No rescue party came. No ship altered its course to investigate the island. On the mainland, the few Nicoleno people who had survived the removal died of disease within a few years. Unknowingly, the woman had become the last living person who knew her language. The last person who carried her people's stories, songs, and knowledge. 1 year became 5. 5 became 10. 10 became 15. She had no way to measure how long she had been alone. No calendar, no clock. Only the cycles of seasons. Only the return of the seabirds each spring. Only the turtles that came ashore in summer. She kept living. In 1853, 18 years after her abandonment, a sea otter hunter named Captain George Nidever heard rumors. Sailors spoke of signs of habitation on San Nicolas Island. The stories were vague, but persistent. Nidever organized an expedition. When his men landed on the island, they found evidence of human activity. Shelters, tools, food remains, but no person. They searched the island carefully. Nothing. On their final night, as they prepared to leave, they saw her. She had been watching them the whole time. Silent, cautious, observing. When she finally approached, she carried roasted wild onions in her hands. It was an offering, a message that required no translation. Communication between them was almost impossible. No one spoke her language. She spoke none of theirs. But understanding passed between them. She sang a song. One crew member later remembered it as an expression of contentment, of readiness. After 18 years of solitude, she chose to leave. She was taken to Santa Barbara, into a world louder and denser than anything she had known for nearly 2 decades. People came to see her, drawn by curiosity and pity. She examined horses, tools, clothing, and buildings, objects completely foreign to her recent experience. By most accounts, she displayed curiosity without fear, calm without resentment. She did not perform trauma. She did not seek pity. But her body faltered. After 18 years of eating a specific diet, her digestive system could not handle the abundance she was offered. New foods, new bacteria, new environments. Her immune system was overwhelmed. Within weeks, she became seriously ill. 7 weeks after her rescue, she died. The irony is painful. She had survived 18 years alone in a hostile environment. She had outlasted storms, injuries, hunger, and complete isolation. But she could not survive the sudden return to civilization. Before her death, she was baptized and given the Spanish name Juana Maria. It is the only name history now knows her by. Her real name, spoken in her own language, was never recorded. Now, let's review 5 important words from this story. Number 1, isolation. The state of being completely alone separated from others. She lived in complete isolation for 18 years. Number 2, endure. To suffer something difficult for a long time without giving up. She endured 18 years of solitude. Number 3, scarce. Not enough of something, very limited in amount. Fresh water was scarce on the island. Number 4, identity. Who you are, your sense of self. She worked hard to maintain her identity while alone. Number 5, acknowledge. To recognize or accept that something exists or is true. For years, the world did not acknowledge her existence. And that is the story of Juana Maria. 18 years alone. A life lived with extraordinary strength in extraordinary silence. Her real name was never recorded. Her language is now extinct. But her story survives. What do you think of her story? Tell me in the comments. If this video helped your English, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Next Tuesday, a new A2 level survival story. Thanks for watching and keep learning. See you Tuesday.